So if you were on the verge of buying yourself a Nintendo Switch 2, but you weren't sure if you were actually going to pull the trigger and jump onto the Nintendo Switch 2 train, well, there's definitely some thoughts about Nintendo potentially raising the prices, but at this point, it's not an if, but more of a when Nintendo will be raising the prices. So in this video, we're going to be talking about all Nintendo Switch 2 price increases, the future, and so much more. Let's get straight into the video. So recently, there was an interview with Bloomberg, and Nintendo is considering to raise the prices for the Nintendo Switch 2. So Bloomberg does say that this is a consideration, but it seems like we've known for quite a while now, or I've been saying it for a while, and a lot of people on the internet have also been saying as well. Nintendo is going to raise the prices in 2026 due to the ongoing crisis with RAM and so much more. So I'm telling you right now, if you haven't bought a Nintendo Switch 2 and you want to buy a Nintendo Switch 2 to play all of the upcoming games or maybe games that haven't been announced, because it seems like we are going to be getting a 3D Mario and a Nintendo Direct this week. Now, I cannot confirm nor deny that this is going to happen, but hey, let's just say that this Direct does happen. It seems like we are going to be getting a 3D Mario. It seems like we are going to be getting The Legend of Zelda, something to do with the 40th anniversary, and tons of different things. If you are waiting for a special game like a brand new Kirby, or you're waiting for a Mario game, or you're waiting for something, maybe you should just stop waiting and go for Nintendo Switch 2. Because I'm just saying that pretty soon, Nintendo is going to have to raise the prices on the system. And no one wants to see that because, hey, when the Switch 2 was originally unveiled, a lot of you, and probably me as well, I was saying, what the heck, $450? Usually Nintendo consoles like $200. But now we're seeing $450, $500 for the Mario Kart bundle. And now what? Is it going to be $550 for a special bundle? A $600 maybe? Who knows? $700? Because right now it's getting really bad. You used to be able to buy 32 gigabytes of RAM for about $100, I would say. Now that is the price of a Nintendo Switch 2. I guarantee you it's the price of a Nintendo Switch 2. So if you were just going to do 16 gigabytes of RAM, Nintendo has to get their hands on that somehow. That would roughly be about $300. Now, depending if it's the higher end speed one, which I believe the Nintendo Switch 2 is the higher speed, which is like DDR5. But then, whatever the case may be, RAM is still really expensive, and there is a shortage of it, so maybe Nintendo won't be able to produce as many Nintendo Switches. So then, you'll end up with the crisis with the PS5 or the Xbox Series X all the way back in 2020, which is a pretty long time ago, but that definitely was a different time for consoles. You had scalpers scalping them off the shelf. So I would just say that if you want one, you should do it now because they're readily available. You can walk into a store and buy yourself a Nintendo Switch 2 because Nintendo did a really good job of allowing you to just pick up a Switch and there you go. A lot of different systems. But once those all sell out, because right now there's not really any RAM affecting the ones that are currently on the shelf, but once they do disappear, you are going to have to pay extra because Nintendo isn't so much as the friendly consumer company that we used to love. Remember the good old Nintendo that we used to say, hey, they know everything about games. We got fun little Miiverse. We had themes. We had a whole bunch of things that were like dedicated to gamers. Now that Furtakawa has taken over, it's more of a business practice, so it doesn't really matter for consumers as much as it does for investors and trying to make the most money possible. Because usually what consoles do to sell the system is that they'll pretty much sell it on a loss, like the PlayStation. Sony's selling that on a loss, Xbox selling that on a loss, but Nintendo doesn't really want to sell the system on a loss. So instead, they will usually raise the prices so then the customer has to pay more instead of Nintendo eating the cost, losing money on that, and then make it back with the games, which I feel like if Nintendo really want to do that, that is definitely something that can happen. Because right now, those are the most expensive games in the industry. We have $70, $80, $90 games at some points, maybe even $100 if you have to buy the DLC. they're definitely making a lot of money back from those games. And as you can tell with Pokemon, those games only cost $14 million to make. It's probably going to be about 20 for Pokemon Generation 10. But the point is, they don't cost too much to make, but then they're selling a buttload. I believe Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, because it was the original Mario Kart 8 and just slapped on Deluxe, that was about, I would say, like $15 million, but you're seeing how it sold $60 million, which is pretty much like $1 billion within revenue, probably even more. It's pretty crazy when you really take it into consideration. So depending on how Nintendo sees all of this and does all of this action-packed, exciting adventure stuff, maybe they are going to eat the cost, but maybe they won't eat the cost. Who knows? I'm just saying, I just wanted to warn you that it seems like price increases are coming our way. But Nintendo did say considering it. So, if they don't raise the prices, that means Nintendo is going to be eating the cost, which is great for consumers, but not so great for investors, I guess. But hey, at least everyone's happy. They're buying a Switch 2 during all the RAM shortage, all the stuff like that. If companies are raising the prices, like the PlayStation will be raising the price, Xbox has already raised the price about 2 to 3 times. If Nintendo stays at $550 or $500 or whatever the case may be, if they stay at that price, well then that would probably mean that the Nintendo Switch 2 would sell even more. And then let's just say that they do. It seems like Nintendo will have to release some really good heavy hitter games to make more consumers want to pick up those games. So let's just say that Nintendo, the prices go up. Okay, the price increases. Why would you buy a Nintendo Switch 2 if there's not too many games to play? If you know what I mean. If there's not too many games to play, why would you pick up a Switch 2? It's really something that you gotta ask yourself, because if Nintendo is going to make the consumer pay more for the Switch 2, well, obviously they're going to have some pretty good games to make someone pay for $600 console or whatever the case may be. So that's where I think the 3D Mario comes in. That's where I think the remasters and remakes of our old Zelda games come in. Like the Ocarina of Time, the supposed Ocarina of Time remaster or remake, that could come in pretty nicely if Nintendo has to raise the price. Or even if they don't have to raise the price, if they eat the cost of what it's going to cost to build a Switch 2, well then there definitely could be a lot here. So this year in 2026 is definitely going to be really interesting. The other day I made a video titled everything that we could see or everything that we're going to see or whatever in 2026. Consider to check that one out because it really dives deep into what we could see, like everything that there's been leaks and rumors and everything associated. So consider to check that one out there if you want to. But yeah, overall I find that this is definitely a very interesting thing. I think that it definitely is scary in some moments, but I just wanted to say, if you are waiting to buy a Nintendo Switch 2, if you're waiting for whatever reason, maybe now's the time to get yourself a Switch 2. I remember talking about this exact subject about 2 months ago, I would say, and it seems like it's gotten worse for RAM. About 2 months ago, I believe the price of 32 gigabytes of RAM was like $500. I think now it's $800 or something like that, which is kind of crazy to actually say so. Maybe it's even $1,000 because I'm looking at Canadian prices. So I should say it's $800 US, $1,000 Canadian. And then you had other sticks of RAM. The 30 or the 64 gigabyte is about $2,000, and then you have even more from there. It pretty much is gold. If you have a RAM, you pretty much struck some gold right there. So anyways, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think that the Nintendo Switch 2 is in a kerfuffle? Or do you think things are going to get better before they get worse? Because like I said, it's the calm waters before the storm. So if you've ever been fishing or sailing or whatever, you'll know that usually when there's a storm nearby, it's really calm. And then 30 minutes later, you get a whole bunch of waves and it's super chaotic, like stormy weather. So anyways, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed. I hope that you consider this, because right now, it's definitely not looking too good. But in games perspective, the games are looking great. The games are actually that are coming out soon are looking really good, but then not so much with the console. If you can't get the console, well then you can't get the games, if you know what I mean. So maybe Nintendo is going to put more on Switch 1 because the Switch 1 costs less to make than the Switch 2. So hey, whatever the case may be, thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one.